Welcome to Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast with Robert Heyder. This is a no-fluff podcast where we dig deep into the journey of scaling your real estate investing and wholesaling business and discuss how to break into commercial real estate investing. All right, guys, welcome to Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast. Actually, today is going to be a really exciting day. I got Clay and Evan Manship out of Indianapolis, Indiana. Met these guys a couple of years back, year and a half back. I've heard about them for a long time, but absolute studs. Really excited to have them on here, and we'll dig a little bit into it. They did 227 wholesale deals last year, which is, that's a damn good amount. This year, prior to the COVID stuff, because it's April 16th when we're filming this here, we're right in the middle of all the COVID stuff, the quarantine stuff. So it's going to make a little bit of an impact. But their goal for this year was to really push on focusing on deal spread and kind of getting some numbers up that way. Really interesting concepts on which they invest. They're very low leverage, no debt kind of guys, which is really exciting because there's not many folks out there that kind of follow that philosophy. So it's interesting to hear that. They got into wholesaling in 2014 and went full-time. Clay went full-time in 15, and I think Evan went full-time in 16 with some high-level commercial real estate finance background. So really excited. We're going to dig into that today. But without further ado, what's going on, guys?
Rob, thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Love being here, man. Appreciate the nod.
Definitely, man. I'm stoked to have you guys on here. This is it's gonna be a great one. When I got involved in Supergroup, I was really excited. I knew a bunch of those guys, and then I think I sat next to you guys on the first day. And was like, oh, hey, Manships. I heard you guys for a while. You're not as bad as people say. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But no, I was excited, and it's been a good friendship. Got to know you guys, and excited stuff. We really, we're working on a commercial deal in Indy, hoping it still kind of goes through. We're kind of waiting out uncertain times here with what's going to go on in the commercial retail market. So kind of slow playing it a little bit. We were set to close on the 31st of March, which would have brought us to Indy for a little while. And I was hoping to swing by your office and shoot this there. But,
yeah, man.
Uncertain times. We'll have to make a second episode, a follow-up.
We'll make it work.
Looking forward to it, man.
Yeah. Well, cool. So you guys have a really interesting kind of philosophy on how you kind of stay kind of between the buoys. You put the blinders on, you really just do kind of what's in your lane. So I'd love to talk to you guys about that to get started. Do you mind just kind of giving us a little backstory on your philosophy and kind of how you operate?
Yeah, man, sure. Yeah. So first off, Evan and I are twins. We're clones of each other. We do everything the same. And that sounds cliche, but I mean, imagine what your business would look like if there were two of you. And that's kind of what I tell people. And that kind of gives people a glimpse into the Manship world, if you will. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was in high school. I was 18 years old, and Paul Clodfelter, shout out to Mr. Clodfelter, in high school made me read this book, and it really changed my philosophy on real estate. So, or on making a living. So, graduated school, had $80,000 of student loan debt. Ev had $81,000 of student loan debt. We still don't know
what happened with that. We're still trying to figure that out 8 years later.
And I bought my first rental 6 weeks after getting my first full-time job. So got a job at a hedge fund that managed a bunch of, like Rob mentioned, a bunch of commercial debt products and fixed income hedge fund. And then bought my first rental. And I think Evan bought his 3 months or so after that. And we started to see there was proof in the pudding as far as what cash flow really was and what, this book isn't bullshit. There's a lot of meat and potatoes with this thing. So
yeah,
that's how we got started.
Man, it's cool too. Where we like Clay said, there's proof in the pudding in that, but we learned very quickly that there was only a certain level of deals that could be done with a limited capital stack. We were 23-year-old kids and had no clue what we were doing. Just kind of, we're $80,000 of debt and broke already. Like, what's another 30, 40 grand. So, we were ignorant to some degree with just jumping in, but we were buying residential real estate in Indianapolis in 2013 when a $30,000 house was a nice place. So got a lot of luck in that regard, but I mean, we've been hustling Robert Kiyosaki disciples since we were Rich Dad Poor Dad in high school. So
Absolutely. So that was when you guys bought the rentals? Is that when 2013, was that when you bought that first rental?
Yeah, boy, I bought 1226 Oxford on October 30th of 2013.
Perfect. That's cool. All right. So, how old are you guys then? Like 28?
Well, we're 29. We'll be 30. The big 3-0 here in July.
All right. Got it. No, very cool. So you guys are 8 years younger than I am. So whenever I was in the same kind of philosophy. I graduated college in December of 04, so really 05. And was just like, all right, I need to get, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I'm glad you brought that up. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad my junior year in college, driving to Florida for spring break. I mean, who does that, right?
Nice. That's spring break, man.
Oh man, I was like sitting in the car for 15 hours, like, oh shit, I'm trying, and then like I just couldn't put it down. I was like, my friends was, laughing at me, giving me a bunch of shit, and it's like, wow, cool. And honestly, it changed my life. It was hugely impactful. It still is, thinking about it. But so I got out of college really 05, I guess, and the market was just silly. Like I wanted to buy a 2-family, live in one side, rent the other one out before the house hack philosophy came around. It was a house hack, but there was no name for it,
Right.
But and everything was like every 2-family was selling as if you're going to condominiumize it, like the numbers were just wacky. So, I mean, even worse than they are like right now or pre-COVID, even worse than they were 2-3 months ago. And it's just like, this isn't going to work. And then finally in late 08, it was like, okay, now deals can be had. Let's go. But no, that's interesting to hear because it's a very, very similar kind of path, just a handful of years kind of further along.
That's where we're at, man. Let's we tell people all the time, like, how'd you get started? And we worked our ass off. There's no way around it. We both lived with our parents right after we graduated. Both were working in commercial real estate, and we had like a similar situation. We lived about an hour from where our jobs were, so we had to take I-465 east for damn near an hour all the way to work, and then 65 east all the way or west back home. So we had all the time in the world to listen to these podcasts and study up, before and after work or whatever. So we put in the work. I mean, we were, 6 to 8 every single night, just grinding, learning, cranking out deals, whatever else. And
yeah.
But so you pair that with buying rentals in 2013. Good things are bound to happen.
Yeah, it's a great time to buy. Yeah, you kind of came into it at a great spot there. That's cool. Well, let's dig into kind of some of your past here, because you guys have interesting kind of upbringings as it relates to the commercial real estate market and then commercial real estate finance. But let's go back before that a little bit. Were you guys were your parents involved in real estate much at all, or did they have any background in that prior to get into this?
It's funny, Rob. My mother is a 6th grade math teacher, and obviously she works for public schools in Indianapolis, so she didn't have a damn clue about entrepreneurship or real estate or managing money.
Sure.
And my dad was a supply chain consultant, whatever that means, for a big pharmaceutical company here in Indianapolis. So no, to answer your question, there was no entrepreneurship, there was no finance, there was very little of that. And frankly, I attribute a lot of that to why I got into it. There was never someone in our corner championing, go own a business, go make money. It was very, again, just like Rich Dad Poor Dad, go get your degree, go get your grades, get a good job, and hop in the wheel. Yeah. And we didn't want to do that.
Very, very cool. What do they think now? Oh, sorry.
Well, you're fine. I always laugh at this because I think a lot of that decision to, do things the way we did would not have been possible if there weren't another person identical to myself
100%.
who kind of encourage that bad behavior for what my parents would think. I mean, even down to the school we went to. We went to Xavier University in Cincinnati, and we're not Catholic. We're not from Cincinnati. We don't know anybody from Cincinnati.
Sure.
We went just to get the hell away from everyone else and do something different. So, that mindset, I guess, was just something we had within ourselves. And, we don't want to be like everybody else. We want to get to Xavier. We want to go do this entrepreneurship thing. And that's how we all started. But no, not a damn person in our family or extended family they can't spell entrepreneur, much less define it. So
very cool. So what did you guys major in college?
We're both finance guys.
Finance guys. Okay. And then how did you end up stumbling onto commercial real estate?
I got to jump in here first, Ev, because I think we might have different answers for this. But so I remind you, I was an 18-year-old kid when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. right? And 18-year-old kids, at least in my shoes, want two things. They want to make a shitload of money, and they want to drive a Ferrari, and they use kind of the toys, right? The fun shit. So in college, I was still in this mindset of I'm going to study finance. I'm going to be an investment banker. I'm going to be like Gordon Gekko, wearing the suspenders and the white collared shirt and everything.
And, pinstripe suit.
It's exactly right, man. That was me, and I wanted to go move to New York or Los Angeles or Chicago, these big markets, and run high finance. And I got punched in the mouth a lot because I interviewed a lot of places, to go into that, and it's hard to break into from a tiny school like Xavier. And I had this rich dad poor dad thing in my back, kind of in the back of my mind, and I also had this appetite to make a shitload of money. And so I just, in doing research, stumbled across, hey, you can work in both finance and real estate. There's a huge area in that. And so I started applying for jobs and always swore that I would never come back to Indianapolis. I did not want to be the kid that comes back home.
Nobody makes money in the Midwest.
Yeah, no one makes any money in the Midwest.
Sure.
And so I still want to come back and do the same shit. And so anyway, I applied for one job back in Indianapolis. It happened to be a hedge fund job, and that's where I landed. That's how I got into, I guess, truly got into real estate, was that corporate job.
Oh, that's interesting. That's yeah, we'll dig into that in a second. How about you, Evan?
I guess I to some degree I guess I blame Rich Dad Poor Dad for a lot of things, including where I'm at now. But really, it kind of tainted the mindset where, to a good, in a good way, you kind of have that lingering feeling that you need to be doing things to set yourself up for this level of how do you continue to further the mission, right? What do you want to do, and then kind of work backwards into that. So I actually got while I was at school, unlike Clay, I got an interview. I scored this job offer with a management consultancy group out of Columbus, Ohio, and I was there for, what was it, Clay, 8 or 9 days,
something like that,
and realized really quickly there were two things in my life that I knew is testament that weren't a part of my life any longer. I was in Columbus, Ohio, and I was away from Clay for the first time. And what I was doing had nothing to do with real estate or finance or building my own balance sheet. Mm-hmm. So I was 20, I wasn't even 23, I was 22 at the time, and I was living in some like fly-by-night apartment off the interstate in Columbus, Ohio, and I said, fuck this. I put the fob and the key on my desk one day after lunch and said, later. Didn't even talk to anyone, didn't tell anyone. Socius, if you're watching this, apologies. Yeah, I just bailed, and I would never encourage anyone to do that. But I worked there for 8 days, and I said, I got to get back to the basics and further the mission, stay the course. So again, started looking into strictly real estate things when I got back home, and then wouldn't you know it, after Clay and I both swore when we graduated, we're not moving back to Indy, and we're going to kind of have that imminent twin divorce. Live in Seattle, one in Miami, and just see a Thanksgiving type deal. And we both started working in real estate in Indy naturally. So it worked out.
No, that's very cool. Yeah, because I kind of similar background, finance. University of Missouri had a real estate program too that you could couple on your finance degree with an extra semester of classwork. So so double major. But then went to Chicago, went to work for kind of a big commercial bank, investment bank. That LaSalle Bank out of Chicago. If you guys remember the old LaSalle Bank, Chicago American.
But that was fun in 05-06.
It was a great time. I was there when the White Sox won the series. Ticker tape parade. Yeah, and it was a pretty amazing experience because I left St. Louis, left Missouri, went to Chicago, different world. Got put up in corporate housing. Got taught financial accounting from the head. Of the financial accounting department of Northwestern University's MBA program, which was pretty cool. So did that for 3 months as part of the job. And then they throw you in the war room essentially and just underwrite deals, for 9 months. And then you go back to the market that you were set to go back to. So St. Louis is obviously my market, but I was there, and it was that kind of high finance suit every day, dark suit, white shirt, tie, it was kind of right in that mix. There's a lot more casual, a lot more kind of where I wanted to be back in St. Louis than it was there. So I realized kind of the same thing as you were mentioning, Clay. It's like, that's what I thought, but it wasn't quite what it really shook out to be, I don't think.
Right, 100%.
But no, that's interesting. So So Clay, you worked for a life company doing underwriting, just big deals. You know, You said 15 to 20 million in debt range, which means they were, probably 50, 60% LTV. So 30, 40 million in asset value. And how long were you doing that before you went full-time into real estate?
Yeah, so I'm a big sports guy, first off. So the Indiana Pacers arena is called Bankers Life Fieldhouse. And Bankers Life is one of the 4 portfolio companies of CNO Financial. And so I worked in the hedge fund that managed CNO Financial's money. That was my kickoff point. But I started work there in July of 13, and I guess stopped October of 15. So I guess a little over 2 years. Okay. 2 years, give or take. Yeah.
Now, do you use some of that background in kind of what you do today?
Well, there's no question. I mean, it's a lot easier for me to understand debt ratios and where people are being overextended. And a lot of this goes back to, let's think about this. I was in the commercial debt world on super safe loans, non-recourse loans. So never saw foreclosure, never saw, I didn't see anything bad happen to these loans at all. And still the idea of being burdened with, $20 million in debt just scared the shit out of me. I knew looking at this industrial plant that if Epson Printers was one of our tenants in one of these buildings, and it's like if Epson ever goes away for whatever reason, you're stuck with $20 million in debt. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of contributes to the way we think about our personal finances and stuff like that today. But the education I got there was second to none. I learned a lot from being in a room with a lot of those guys.
Very cool. Very cool. How about you, Evan? I guess you were kind of in the same boat, 2.5 years or so on the kind of apartment student housing side. What kind of,
Man, it's really unique. I laugh about it all the time. For how similar, Clay and I are, and how, identical everything else in our life is. Our jobs, while we're both in real estate finance, right out of school, could not have been any different. Clay was utilizing these super sexy, $50, $60 billion office towers and big industrial buildings and retail joint, just these super sexy buildings. And my first gig was for a property tax consulting group. So I got paid to travel around and meet with assessment officials and argue for a living while valuing real estate, which my wife loves. So I got it all out there instead of him. But I got to travel to sexy places like Frankfort, Kentucky, and let's see, where did I go in Missouri? Sedina, Missouri. I just go all Sedalia. There you go.
Yeah.
All these nasty hillbilly towns and go walk.
Easy, man.
Yeah. I gotta watch my mouth here. I gotta, but I got to go through like these dog food plants and all this other stuff. But I was valuing real estate, right?
Yeah.
So, was doing that. Was implementing like tax abatements and TIF district stuff. For these big developers that were putting, warehousing and multifamily stuff into place. And I got recruited by one of our clients to essentially jump ship and join him to be a development analyst or developer, source some dirt and start putting into effect, the entitlement work for these massive student housing companies. So like Clay said, from an education perspective for future investments, what else do you want? You're working with these ultra high net worth individuals on, how to finance these things, how to put it into place, meeting the right people, and it was exactly what I wanted to do. And had I known jumping from that company that I worked for 8 or 9 days that this is what it would be like, I wouldn't have lasted 8 hours at that place. It was the right call for sure.
Man, that's awesome. That's great to hear. Well, cool. Let's dig into like some of the nuts and bolts of the wholesaling operation, because I think you guys do it a little bit different than a lot of folks in a very good way. Well, actually, you know what? Before we jump into that, that'll be the next point. I do want to dig into one thing because it's really important. Because I know that before we get off this, the Robert Kiyosaki way, the Rich Dad Poor Dad way, is a little bit more targeted towards higher debt. Yet you guys are following the Rich Dad Poor Dad model, but then are pushing away from the debt. You want as little debt, as little tie down as possible. Like, how did you kind of come to that conclusion? Obviously it's baked into you guys. It's pretty easy to hear that as you're talking, but then also like to say, hey, this is the disciple, this is what I'm following. I love this model, but we're going to change it to this degree. Like, how did you guys come to that conclusion?
That's a great question. I'm not even sure that we have a good answer for that. A lot of it has come from trial and error, but maybe on a philosophical level, my father, while not an entrepreneur or not a finance guy, always taught Ev and I to question everything. Question everything. Why you're being told something, why you're being taught something, where you're going, literally there's no limit to that. And so even reading a book from someone as esteemed as Kiyosaki or Ed mentioned Ramsey earlier, I mean, question everything they're telling you and why they're saying it. And so if you want to take what Kiyosaki said in Rich Dad Poor Dad, it's, he calls it the rat race, but, hopping in that's no way to build a balance sheet. There's no way to create your own path and your own vision, your own wealth from that. You can go make a lot of money, but you're never going to, create wealth and create legacy wealth doing that. Mm-hmm. And that was something we really agreed with, and that maybe the high debt stuff, not so much. And I go down every single list of guys that I know and respect, and, some things we agree with and some things we don't. But I think that's probably the best prescription or maybe diagnosis as to how we landed on our philosophical viewpoint.
Interesting. Does that same apply for you, Evan?
No, that might be a little bit more philosophical than the answer I would give. But I think, Kiyosaki, we'll keep referencing him to Kingdom Come. But, he was the first domino to fall. And, you read one of those, financial guru books or whatever, and it's like, well, what have I been missing, right? Mm-hmm. I should preface this, in high school, not a lot of people have the same opportunity we did, where Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad was a piece of required reading. Yeah, it wasn't here, you should read this, or I hope this changes your life. I mean, we got a quiz on chapters 2 through 4 on Thursday.
That's crazy. I mean, that's awesome. I hadn't heard of any schools doing that.
It was the coolest thing, cool. And that's why Clay shout out Mr. Clodfelter for sure. But we read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it's like, what is it? God, who else is out there? What are we missing? And they're different. And then naturally, the next dude you Google, and Ramsey pops up. So then, from a philosophical standpoint, we adopted the mindset where you can create your own. You can be an entrepreneur. You can be an investor. Cash flow quadrant stuff. But at the same time, there's no reason you can't implement another strategy from another mind that says just aggressively pay down debt and get once you rid yourself of it, then you got both kind of good things going on. So that's, from a tangible perspective, I think that's kind of the advice that we have followed, kind of a weird hybrid of the two.
Interesting. No. Yeah, I do really want to get into your wholesale thing, and I don't want to miss out on too much of this. So maybe we'll come back to that point, because I'd really like to hear some deeper thoughts into the debt side, and if that will change with, if you can buy assets for cheaper, and if we're in a market shift and some of the things like that. But yeah, let's dig into the wholesale side, because I really think you guys do some stuff in some unique ways. I want to really get into the kind of disposition side, because I think you guys are on the cutting edge of some really cool stuff. And I know my business partner, Jonathan, he's always bragging about what you guys got going on. And from the conversations you've had on the dispo side, you guys, went out and bought a bus for tours. I mean, that's pretty badass. So, can you just give me a little bit of a breakdown of kind of how you guys operate your business, what it looks like, and kind of what you think your how would you say this, like your highest skill set, like your real superpower is, and then kind of what you do differently than other folks?
Yeah, I'll kind of nod into this, because I kind of stepped out of the corporate world first, because we started making. I wouldn't say I was matching my annual salary, but it was getting close, and I said I'll make less money for more freedom. That's good for me. We did not want to be wholesalers. We had read about it on Bigger Pockets. I understood on a fundamental level what it was, but we never intended to own a wholesale operation. I still tell people that. Now, the first deal we ever wholesaled was a deal that we put under contract, a duplex we put under contract to buy for ourselves, and we put down $500 of hard earnest money, right? $500, and we went through and took a look at it and said, fuck, we don't want to buy this thing. This thing's in bad shape, and we could not lose that earnest money, so we didn't have $500 to lose, right? So I had to go find someone who wanted to buy this thing. And anyway, found it, transacted it, made $13,000, and said, "Wow, there's something to this."
Wow.
So that was in 2014, actually, before I quit my job.
Yeah.
And fast forward to today, we really just stuck to. It sounds stupid, but we stuck to the basics. I mean, what got you here is what's going to, excuse me, you called them the blinders earlier, and that's exactly what it is. We don't mess with any creative stuff. We don't do any flips. We don't do anything. All we do is wholesale, nonstop. And currently today, we have 9 employees plus the 2 of us, so a total of 11 guys in our group. And I'm not sure what Ev will agree with when it comes to superpowers, but I think ours would be lead generation and the disposition side of things. We are really, really good at getting leads in the door. And if we get better at converting them, we do a lot better at selling those things too. But I think that'd be my 2 cents.
No, that's precisely what I would say is lead generation. I mean, from a lead perspective, I mean, how many leads are we doing a week, Clay?
200 or so.
So, a huge amount of hot leads. We've got now 3 acquisitions guys that are touching all of them. And then we've got a director of operations that oversees those leads coming in, and then the acquisition side of things, converting them, which is where if there's a weak spot, that's in my opinion that's where it's at. But I mean, finding the leads, getting the leads in the door, and then getting those properties out the door is cake. And some of what John and I have a tendency to talk too much about this, but a lot of it's just kind of by trial and error. I mean, Clay has one of the differences in our twinship, if you want to call it that, is Clay's a very slow player, very make sure, chop around, double check. And I'm a huge fly by the seat of my pants guy. When I know it works, it's going to work. We just do it.
Yeah, just go. Yeah.
Obviously, it's gotten us into some trouble for some things, but it's made a lot of money in some things as well, including this damn bus. So that's something where I kind of sprung it on Clay. Hey, by the way, we bought a bus. Got to go help me pick it up.
There was no discussion there, was it? It was just kind of like, hey, go look in the back of the office. There's a bus sitting back there. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That might be the title. By the way, I bought a bus.
Please do. Yeah. That's my bus. Yeah, we just maybe that's something that want to talk about dispositions. We've hit a couple chords just by getting lucky. I'm a big fan of doing things that not everybody else is doing. Obviously, going to Xavier, starting my own company, whatever. That bus was just something nobody else was doing. It's like, why not host some events and get people to kind of come hang out for a while, have an open bar, brings people, and then just take a bunch of drunk people around on a bus, tour the city, and you look like an authority, and it's a win-win-win. So
so it worked? Did the bus still work?
Exceedingly well. And the chief reason behind it was, in my opinion, no one else is doing it. There was no competition. There was no other bus or people had the wherewithal, time, money, effort, whatever to have that go forward. So I can talk about dispositions to kingdom come, but that's just a microcosm of kind of how we work, not just in Dispo, but the whole company.
No, that's cool. That's cool. So were you bringing folk? I mean, because this is such an interesting point. I just hit on this because I know everyone's going to want to hear it because I want to hear it. But like, did you bring folks from out of your market? Were you recruiting folks in market? Like, what was the next step after, hey, we got a bus, let's paint it, let's make it look badass, let's have an open bar. Now what? Like,
well, really, when the story behind the bus is we got a friend that works for an auction company here in Indy. And he knows what we do to a small degree, and said, "Oh, it'd be cool, if you guys do. We buy houses on a bus. Here's this bus." And I was thinking, whatever, like that'd be cool. Sure, where the hell am I going to put it? What am I going to do with it? All these questions, right? When you start thinking about the ownership of a bus, I'll throw a bid out there, whatever, $1,500. Certainly, someone will bid me up. Well, 48 hours later, I own a $1,500 bus. And that's how that came about. So it wasn't like, wow, we should do an open bar and have this event or whatever. We just happened to own a bus. And I'm a big fan of just jumping in and figuring it all out after the fact. So now we own a bus. Like, there's no point in not wrapping it, making a mobile billboard at the very least. And once we had a mobile billboard, it's like, wow, that'd be sweet to kind of, what if we had an event and had a little bus tour type deal. So we started this event and we recruited, anyone that wanted to come, local folks, out-of-state folks, whoever. And just talked about, kind of what we're doing now, just kind of a little roundtable discussion of Indianapolis and what's been working for folks, what hasn't. We had, 70 or 80 folks in the door, which was interesting because only 55 people fit on that bus. But ask me how I know. Yeah, so it was a really cool event. We did it over a weekend back in November, and it worked out exceedingly well.
I've got to chirp in too, Rob, real quick. I think something we had going for us that really, again, kind of set us apart is that this whole idea was approached because we were just preparing ourselves for opportunity, right? I mean, we happened to have a buddy who was in an auction, and we bought a bus, and we wrapped it, and that turned into something else. And so we kind of just put ourselves out there and kind of let it happen. But maybe more so than that, this whole event process that Ev put together was not thrown under the guise of, hey, look at us, we're gurus. I'm wearing a 3-piece suit up on stage, selling from the stage. No, it was an educational coming out with us and drink a beer or two, right? It was an extremely normalized thing, and Ev did a good job of that. We just kind of set ourselves different, and if we got to be the Midwest flavor of the real estate education space, then we'll do that.
That's cool. No, that's super cool. Cause like, and it's kind of unique, right? It's like, because I think one of your guys' superpowers is your ability to be kind of singularly focused, you know, being able to put those blinders on and just do and become great at it, right? It's kind of the good to great model. It's like before you bolt on a bunch of other stuff, let's get great at this first thing, right?
Yep.
But then to say, hey, what if we buy a bus and do this tour? It kind of falls outside of that a little bit. Turns out it worked. Now, you know, the old saying is, it's probably one of my favorite quotes is the harder I work, the luckier I get. You know, it's like you say, okay, well, I got lucky, you know, kind of worked out. The opportunity was there, but, you know, you're out there grinding, you're talking to folks, making connections, you know, you just happen to stumble across more opportunities. But yeah, I mean, like, I love it. I think it's so badass. It's just such a crazy concept to just throw out there. And it's specifically how cool, because like, you're like, oh, let's buy the bus, $1,300. It probably costs you 4 or 5 times that much to wrap it. But hey, let's wrap it. Let's do whatever we're going to do. And then let's do a bus tour. Cause it's like, most folks would be like, oh, well, let's rent a bus, you know, we'll do a bus tour and then like do it that way. So it's just how it kind of came about is a pretty cool, unique kind of thing.
And again, it's not unique to Dispo or that bus, you know, idea on its own. I can talk about it, like I said, forever, but you know, we do that with a lot of different things. You know, hiring our operating officer was a piece of that. You know, hiring or bringing on the different lead platforms that we utilize. I mean, it's all kind of the same way, where it's like, look, we're just going to jump in and then figure out a way to make it work after the fact. And that's, you know, whether luck or execution, whatever, but that's been the mantra for years and years now.
Oh, that's cool. Well, that's interesting. So 227 deals in 2019, 9 folks plus you two. You know, that's a lot of deals. You know, you're talking about what, just under 20 a month, give or take, right? So
yeah, that's about right.
So with that though, I can't like I think I might fantasize about having the ability to be singularly focused on wholesale. I feel like we have so many things going on that like, I don't know what could be achieved if we had we always have the ability, right? But if we actually had the discipline to be singularly focused. So, I mean, I think a lot of folks in our industry kind of geek out on the lifestyle concept associated with it. I mean, are you guys working 40, 50 hours a week still, like with that? And kind of what's it look like in your office on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I heard a profound quote, and this is probably a year or two ago when we were finally bringing on, you know, scaling staff. And I'm a single 29-year-old guy. Evan's married, but we don't have kids or anything, so we take pride in working our asses off. And I was getting frustrated by my employees, you know, they all work their ass off, but not, you know, they're not showing up Saturday, Sunday week like I am, right? And maybe Gary Vee or one of these other online guys said, you'll never be able to get your employees to care much about your business as you do. You just can't. And it's unfair to expect them to care that much. So do I work 50, 60 hours a week? That'd be a good week. We both work all the fucking time. And, you know, I got these guys, you know, nerding out to the anti-hustle and grind lifestyle, and good for them. You know, our office on a day-to-day basis is a boiler room. It was built that way. If you've ever watched the movie Boiler Room with Ben Affleck, I would highly recommend it. But it's really what it is. It's a big trading floor, because that's what I grew up on in my corporate world. It's a trading floor for real estate. And we've got ticker symbols and TVs and sirens and all kinds of fun stuff. It's a cool spot. So our business is built around working your ass off. And if I hire you and you're not in that mindset, then you're not going to be a good culture fit anyway, and you'll quickly be escorted out. I hope that answers your question. Just kind of rambled for a while.
We set it up intentionally to be, you know, we want hustlers on the squad, and you know, it's not going to be one of those things we're going to sit you down and have a performance plan, whatever. Like you're gonna get sick and tired of this if it's not the culture fit for it anyway. But I mean, for Clay and I mean, like Clay said, we're 30-year-old, you know, 30 years old, no kids. I mean, even if, you know, we were raking in, you know, $1 million a month, you know, residually, you know, that whole, anti-hustle grind, the John Martinez way of things, God bless it. I respect the hell out of that mindset, but it's just not for me. I mean, I like working. I like to be in the business, and I'm not sure I could ever see myself kind of retiring from it. So that's how Clay and I work, and that's how, those are the type of people we like to bring on, just people who like to be around it and like the hustle and grind of what's going on here. So that's the thought.
Got fourth member on the podcast.
Yeah, he's wandering around. I don't know where mommy's at. So,
and Rob, I feel compelled to share with you too. What I've found really important in what we do is that when I show up Saturday morning at 10 a.m., whatever, I'll go to the gym, have breakfast, and head out into the office for a couple hours. And it's not a full day, but be there 3-4 hours and get some work done. It's a lot easier for my guys to see that and to emulate that in what they do.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not uncommon for my office to have 3, 4, 5 guys there, half the staff on a Saturday at noon, at 2. And I'll bring pizza and we'll have a little thing. We might drink a beer or two, but we'll work. It's a family. And I will 100% do any job in my business and lead by example 100% of the time. And that's something I think we've done really well for our guys to be able to see that has been beneficial.
Yeah, maybe beyond leads and dispo, maybe culture, like cultivating the culture within our office is, I can honestly say that every one of the 11 people or 9 people, including Clay and myself, they're just good friends, people I'd hang out with on a regular basis. So maybe that's more than leads and dispo. No,
that's huge. I mean, obviously you surround yourself with people you like, you get a similar kind of culture, similar set values, core values, and it should be fun to go in. And, we hang out with a lot of folks like in these masterminds that are more kind of West Coast. I don't see as many folks on the East Coast, but kind of the Midwestern values, the land of broad shoulders, right? Everyone kind of rolls up their sleeves and gets to work kind of concept. I like it. We're kind of the same way, where I love working on Saturdays. Like, I love getting up. I'll hang out with the kids in the morning for a little bit, and then kind of to your point, go to the gym, get some kind of workout in, and then go to the office and knock out 3-4 hours of work on a Saturday.
Yeah, man.
It's a good day,
That's right.
And I don't know. I have a much better time drinking in the evenings after I work during the day than just.
We'll make it a point. We'll be sure when you guys come and make episode 2 at the office, we'll have a drink or two at the office, and we'll get to enjoy that a little bit. But I'm with you, man. I think Saturdays at the office are a good time to really focus. And going back to what you said earlier about you get lost in the day-to-day and the noise of transactions, everything that's going on, but we are really good at keeping focused, and it allows me to kind of go back and regather what the week was and where the next week's going. And again, for my team to see that is invaluable.